For this month's Startup Spotlight, we're joined by Uri Marchand from Overwolf. Overwolf is an Israeli company in the gaming space. So welcome, Uri. And I just want to jump right in. Welcome here. Can you tell us how you started Overwolf and why you started it? And where did the name come from?
Sure. So I've been a gamer all my life, played games since around about the age of 6. And that continued as I grew up and tried to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. As I graduated from computer science, together with a few friends, we had a couple of ideas that we thought are going to be creating a meaningful company. And this is generally kind of the genesis of how we started. We started as creators ourselves, building features for the games that we played. And we called the company Overwolf because as gamers, we are used to getting companion tips from an overlord inside the game. And we felt like we liked that name. I was playing a lot of StarCraft 2 back in the day. And we felt like Overlord is like a good kind of name, but it's probably too serious. And we wanted to give it a bit of an angle with an animal. And we played around with it, came up with Overwolf. The domain was open, and we decided to call the company this way.
So you're located in Israel. How many people do you have working there now? Offices where?
So we're about 125 in the company. There are about 85 of us in the Israeli office, about 10 in the UK, and then all the rest are in different places around the world, particularly Europe. But also we have one team member in Korea and one team member in Canada. So we're quite distributed outside of the folks in HQ and in the UK office.
When you talk about the company, at least on your website and all the other things, you say the company is by creators for creators. Can you tell us a little bit about the role of creators in gaming? Because I'm used to maybe playing Candy Crush or so, right?
Right.
Um, I'm not familiar with all the terms like modding. Explain a little bit how that world works.
Sure. So modding is basically a third-party developer that creates a different experience around an existing game. We have something like 4 decades of UGC, user-generated content and mods around games. The first part of that was reverse engineering and hacking. Second part was kind of the beginning of official endorsement by the game developers. And now the third part, where we are today, is sort of an inflection point and a deep understanding from a lot of IP owners and game developers that creators are meaningful for the future of their games. In the future, we believe that more and more games are going to be endorsing creators around their games and providing tools for third-party creators to play around and kind of use their games as game engines. So just like the revolution that we've seen on linear video or VOD, now a lot of the VOD content on the web is UGC, right? YouTube, one of the biggest platforms for video, is essentially a UGC platform. And we think a similar thing is going to happen in games. And as a company, we're committed to seeing that future and making it successful for the game developers that we work with, the creators that we work with, and also the brands that we interact with.
Now, ultimately, this is about sustaining creators, right? So they don't do this for free. How do you help creators make money in this environment, in this ecosystem?
Basically, it splits into two ways. The first one is advertising and brand partnerships, and we facilitate relationships between brands who want to get visibility with the creations of these creators and the creators. So it's very, very difficult if you're like a modder to, have a relationship with a brand or do something cool that would make sense for a brand and get paid for it because you're a single person and maybe all you care about is just creating content and not necessarily interacting on a business sense with larger companies. So we try to facilitate that for creators, and we're allowing them to do brand interactions either through traditional ads like IAB standard ads or through more advanced and interesting activations. The other side is simply we're facilitating payments for them that could be either a subscription to their mods or microtransaction or a donation or those kind of things, or something like a Spotify where you subscribe to a group of mods and then the revenue is being distributed between the different creators based on their contribution to the engagement. So So to sum up, basically two buckets: ads and red partnerships. That's one, and then microtransaction payments. That's the second one.
And you also have a creator fund, right? You invest in some of the ventures. Tell us a little bit more about that and why it is important for this ecosystem.
I think it's important for the ecosystem because we're building it. We're a company that's committed to building the creator ecosystem around existing games. And if I'm a creator and I want to start building something, I may not have the resources or the funds to be able to quit my day job and do this, commit to doing it full time and at high quality. And because we want to see this vision through, and because we want to turn in-game creation into a true profession, we want to be in a place where we can invest in creators and facilitate the need for a salary for a certain amount of time until you kind of cross a threshold and make a living doing it. We've seen good examples of this with Slack. So I believe they had something like 100 million that they've invested in building their ecosystem. We've seen it happen with YouTube, and we started doing it a couple of years ago with a fund that we built together with Intel. We saw that it works, and we doubled down and increased the size of the amount of the investment. So right now we operate from a 50 million vehicle.
So it's a feeder system for the whole ecosystem that you have in mind. That's great. So what trends are you seeing how brand partners are participating in this ecosystem? How can brands be involved? You say you're a bridge between creators and brands. How does it play out?
So I think it really depends on the brand and really depends on the story and really depends on kind of how we want to bring the brand values to life within a game environment. But I think it comes down to democratizing creativity. When we've done a recent activation for Dawn, we were amazed with the level of creativity that came from the different people that participated in this activation. We basically challenged them to stay consistent with the brand values around preserving wildlife and visualizing that inside Minecraft in creative ways. And the outcome is just mind blowing in what they were able to create. Is it a fit for every brand? Probably not. Like we need to for each brand think about what are the brand values? How can we tell the story in a way that is meaningful? How can we touch on what people feel and not just fun ideas or whatever? And I think the magic happens is when you combine the two and when you give creators something that they can really feel a part of and really sort of empathize with and believe in, then the outcome could be simply amazing. And apart from that, we're helping with just traditional exposure that you might get with other publishers. But I think the mix of traditional exposure plus leveraging creativity of third-party creators in a clear narrative that is defined by the brand values, this is where magic happens.
That's fantastic. So one last question. You've been a co-founder of this company for about 12 years, I believe.
Yep.
For any entrepreneurs, starting entrepreneurs out there, you've learned a lot of lessons. What lessons would you teach them about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, clearly a gazillion lessons. If I have to pick one, it's probably going to be listening to one core customer. Um, because we get a ton of inputs from many different people. It could be our investors, it could be our spouse, our friends, our different team members. And I found that it's the most valuable to kind of very accurately define who your core customer is and just be obsessed with serving that core customer. And I think eventually, if you do this over and over, you're able to provide a lot of value, a lot of moat for these customers. And from there, it's easier to create value for other people and for other customers and continue to grow the business. But I think sometimes entrepreneurs get confused with this is a good idea. This is a good idea. This guy said something smart. Let's do it. I think that sometimes it could also be risky. And you have to kind of pick who your customer is and mostly focus on listening to what those guys have to say.
Well, thank you very much for an enlightening conversation. Uri Marchand, CEO and co-founder of Overwolf.
Thank you so much.